Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Gobo and today I'll take you for a trip along the highways of Europe. This will be the first video in a series that I'm calling Why Play, where I give you my impressions about the game and talk a little about what makes that game special. Call it an informal or light review if you like. I will mostly cover games in virtual reality, but might occasionally include a non-VR game or two. And to kick off this series, I'm beginning with Euro Truck Simulator 2, or ETS2 as it's frequently called. So, why on earth would I willingly play this game? I mean, on paper it sounds even more boring than watching grass grow. You drive around Europe delivering goods to make money? That sounds like a terribly boring job and nothing I'd voluntarily sign up for. Well, that changed last year around April when my girlfriend decided that I had to learn how to drive. For real, that is. After a short test drive around the parking lots, I decided to see if there was a way to improve my skills through virtual reality. I found a game on Steam called City Car Driving and bought myself a Logitech G27 steering wheel secondhand. And it turned out to be a really nice addition to driving in the real world. It gave a real sense of driving through traffic, but it had one major flaw. The two cities you drive in are rather small, and I soon tired of seeing the same old streets over and over again. And that's where ETS2 enters the picture. I'd seen the game before and immediately dismissed it as being utterly uninteresting. But now I started looking at it in a new and different light, as a learning tool. And what really drew my attention was the option of playing the game with a virtual reality headset. After entering the game, I began playing. I took a few contracts to make some starting money and really enjoyed the driving experience. It was a very different feeling to drive around in such a huge behemoth of a vehicle, at least compared to a regular city car, but it really gave me a nice feel for the traffic as well as providing a larger world to drive through. And as I was playing, something strange happened. I started thinking less and less of this game as a driving simulator that I could use to earn my skills, and more as a relaxing escape from the real world. I began to really enjoy driving the trucks and earning money, and also began to see it more as a game with a goal I could set for myself. The way you earn experience during the game and unlock perks that allows you to take on long missions, attempt more valuable cargo, or transport dangerous materials really sparked the endorphin glands in my gamer brain. Within a few hours, I had earned enough to buy my first truck in the game, and this kicked up another thing that really hooked me: upgrading. Not only are all the trucks in the game highly customizable, but there's dozens of them, and each with their own perks and disadvantages. By now I was completely hooked, and for a few weeks this was the only game I played. The feeling of really being in the truck is amazing, and the attention to small details are astounding. Press a button to start the wipers, and you can see the little stick below the steering wheel twist. The same goes with parking brakes, indicator lights, and every other little bit that moves in a regular car. And the details are not limited to the trucks themselves, but to the entire world around you. Inside cities, there's small details that make each city unique, and along the roads in between, there's gorgeous vistas and pretty places to see everywhere. The world is drastically shrunken down compared to the real world, so you can drive from Berlin to Luxembourg in about 15 to 20 minutes instead of spending several hours on the road, and this adds to the sense of exploration. There's always something new to see around that bend in the road, and just to add to that, there's a setting in the option menu that allows you to tweak how often you encounter random road events. These are usually in the form of car crashes, roadworks, or people being stopped by the police for speeding, but I've also seen piles of trash or a suitcase by the roadside, along with a few other type of events that I won't spoil. Well, except for one. I was passing a curve in a road in Austria one evening when I spotted several emergency vehicles along the roadside, and the police was slowly directing traffic past. When it was my time to go by, I saw that the commotion was caused by a small plane, a Cessna 152 I believe, that had crash-landed right by the road and hit some trees. It felt like really such a WTF moment at the time. The game is extremely mod friendly, and there's a thriving mod community out there constantly updating and tweaking the game so you can change it to suit your needs. I've added several mods myself, from more realistic rain, sounds, and track physics to a more reliable and readable GPS maps and denser traffics. There's mods that fix road sign errors, change the looks of the world map, or change the company name of the trailers to reflect real world companies instead of the made up companies that the game ships with. It just feels more right to deliver furniture for IKEA instead of ICA. There's even mods that completely change the world map by adding hundreds of roads and cities. Pro mods, I believe it's called. And hey, there's even mods that allow you to play multiplayer. Though this mod sadly doesn't support virtual reality, so I haven't tried it. Most of these mods are available just a few clicks away in the Steam workshop. And if that wasn't enough, you can make a free account on worldsoftrucks.com and sign into it in ETS2, thus gain access to community-made missions and events. The game itself is highly customizable out of the box with a plethora of options. You can change the stability of your trucks and trailers, the effect of your brakes, how realistic and difficult you want trailer couplings to be, or the amount of force feedback your wheel delivers. Do you want to use the imperial metric systems? Or what currency do you want to display your wealth in? There's tons and tons of options to choose from, if you want to. The default settings will work just fine until you're ready to customize it to your liking. And speaking of customization, the trucks have a built-in radio that lets you switch between real-life radio channels that stream into the game while you play. I wasn't aware of this and thought it was a recording, so I was quite startled the first time I activated the radio and a public service announcement suddenly cut in between the songs telling people how to keep the distance and use face masks due to the COVID pandemic. In the options, you have a long list of channels to choose from, and if you have the URL for a station, you can add it to in by yourself, as well as its favorite stations that you can easily switch to from the cabin of your truck without having to open a menu. There's nothing more relaxing than driving through these gorgeous landscapes while listening to some tunes on the radio. But the game has a few downsides. It's not perfect. Like the way the world is shrunk down. This leaves you with some strange situations, like when you're driving onto a highway. In the real world, you will have a decent length to get your speed up and safely enter the passing traffic. But in this game, they are way too short, often just the length of 3 or 4 normal cars. This leads to an awkward situation where you either have to brake down or speed up to get past cars driving on the highway. The cities also feel a little empty. There is an option to add pedestrians, but it just places a couple of people at fixed places around the delivery parks. I'd love to see people walking around along the curbs and crossing streets at streetlights. Without them, the cities feel almost abandoned. And speaking of cities, I wish they were just a little bigger. They are just small pieces of each city, enough to give you a sense and atmosphere of the place, but ultimately they are too small. I had another issue playing this game. That wasn't the fault of the game itself, but rather the virtual reality headset I used. I originally owned the Oculus Rift CV1 and really loved it, but it really wasn't that amazing. To accurately see the speedometer on my dashboard, I had to lean forward and squint, and the road signs in the distance was a messy blur. But as I said, that was the headset, and due to the high screen door effect that headset suffered from. Last October, I bought an Oculus Quest 2, and the graphics game are as sharp as razor blades in this headset. No need to lean forward to see if I'm speeding, and the signs look just fine. I mention this just as a heads up that the quality you'll experience is highly dependent on your headset display, though I guess this would be true for most VR games. Several months passed with me playing this game regularly, and occasionally I had a bout of practice driving with my girlfriend, and she told me she noticed a huge increase in my driving skills and confidence between each time, and I'm fairly sure that's all to do with driving in VR. I can safely say this is a hugely addictive game but for some strange reason it's immensely fun, despite sounding more dull than watching paint dry. I highly recommend the game, at least in virtual reality and with a decent steering wheel. It's about as immersive as you can get, and it turns out to be a real game that was fun to play. And with this, I'm saying farewell for now. I hope this video has been somewhat useful, and if you learned something or have anything to say about it, please leave a comment below. Feel free to donate a thumbs up, and I wish you a good day.